Hello, students. Once again, hope you're doing well. I'm going to go over a problem that a student has sent me yesterday. And the problem is from again graphing functions, and to find the critical points, to find the intervals where the function is increasing or decreasing. So as you can see, the problem is up on my screen, and it is asking to find the intervals on which the function f is increasing and where the function is decreasing. So again, it's a trick problem. We need to find, I don't need to find domain or intercepts, and I don't need to graph it. I just need to figure out the intervals of increasing and decreasing of this function analytically. So the interval given on which the function is defined is 0 to pi, and the function is a trig function. So to find the intervals of increasing and decreasing, firstly, we need to find the critical points of this function. So to figure out the critical points, I will find the derivative, which is f prime, and that becomes -2 is a constant. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. So this actually becomes 2 sine of x, because there are two negatives, one which is in the function, the other one which is the derivative of cosine. So it's 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0. I have to set it equal to 0. That implies that sine of x equals 1/2. So sine is positive 1/2. It's in two quadrants. The two quadrants are quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. Reference angle for these two quadrants is pi/6. So pi/6 is one of the angles. And for quadrant 2, it's pi minus pi/6, or 5, or you can use unit circle, which is 5 pi over 6. So those are my two angles in between 0 to pi. I'm not concerned with any other angle, since my restricted domain here is 0 to pi. I'm going to draw this number line starting from 0 all the way up till pi. And here I have my pi/6, and I have my 5 pi over 6 here as well, right? So I need to get the test points and look at the values of f prime at those test points. So I'm going to mark a few points here, somewhere here, somewhere here. So in between 0 to pi/6, wait, I'll tell you what we can do there. In between pi/6 and 5 pi/6, I have pi halves, and then 5 pi/6 pi, I have to figure out an angle as well. Or just figure out the value of f prime, which is f prime is given by 2 sine of x minus 1 equals 0. Sorry, 2 sine of x minus 1. So at pi half, if I plug in pi half, sine of pi half is 1. So at the point pi half, so I need 3 points. The first point I don't know, between 0 to pi/6. The second one I know is pi half. And the third one, still, I need an angle between 5 pi by 6 to pi. Now, if you have calculators, you can take, for example, between 0 to pi/6, you can take pi over 12. But if you're doing, I'm going to show you how to do it without calculators or analytically. So at pi over 2, we all agree that the value is 2 times 1 minus 1, which is positive 1. So the function is increasing between pi/6 and 5 pi/6. Now, as written here in the answer also, the function is increasing from 5 pi/6 to 5 pi/6. Now let's check the signs between 0 to pi/6 and 5 pi over 6 to pi. Now from 0 to pi over 6, the value of the sine function, if you look at the unit circle, if you remember the unit circle, sine of 0 is 0, right? And sine of pi over 6, it's the y value. So from 0 to pi over 6, the value of the function, this is my pi/6 somewhere right here. So sine of 0 is 0. Between 0 to pi/6, the value of the sine is between 0 and 1/2. It's increasing. The value of y is increasing. Y is your sine x, if you remember. So the value of the sine function in between 0 to pi/6. So from 0 to pi/6, if your theta is between 0 to pi/6, then your sine function is between 0 to 1/2. Sine of theta is between 0 to 1/2. So if you plug in any value of sine, any value between 0 to pi sixth in here, it's the value of sine is between 0 to 1/2. So you can plug in 1/4, you can plug in 1/8. At 1/2, it is 0, right? If you plug in sine x 1/2, but if you plug in any value of sine x between 0 and 1/2, this has to be negative. F prime will be negative. You can plug in 1/4, you can plug in 1/8, you can plug in 1/6. So anything less than half, if I plug in there, the value of the sine is negative. The value of this whole f prime is negative, because 2 times 1/4 minus 1, 2 times 1/6 minus 1. So that's negative. So I have assured you that the value here is negative. And similarly, by symmetry, the value here is also negative. So the function is decreasing from 0 to pi sixth as written here. The function is increasing from pi sixth to 5 pi over 6 as written here. And again, the function is decreasing from 5 pi over 6 to pi. Okay, so again, if you have your calculators, if calculators are allowed, you can check, take pi over 12, for example, in the first one, and also you can take an angle between 150 and 180. You can take, let's say, 160, convert it into radians, and figure out the value of that function, of the derivative. But mostly in universities and major four-year schools, they don't allow you to use calculators. So you should know how to figure out the value of this f prime without calculators on those intervals. So again, on those intervals, the value of sine is between 0 and 1/2. Plug in any of that value in f prime, you will get a negative answer. Okay, hope this makes sense. Keep sending questions and stay safe. Bye-bye.